Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for tuning in. Tonight we're going to do a track-by-track album battle. This time the Van Halen edition, featuring two Van Halen albums that are kind of oddly linked together in my mind, though they really don't have much in common. That being 5150 versus Fair Warning. So these are kind of at opposite ends of the Van Halen spectrum for me. This is one of my favorites, actually one of my least favorites. So why are they linked? Because I was first exposed to Van Halen through the first album. But as I started getting into the band, this was the next album I bought, followed by this one. So in a weird way, I kind of linked these two together. So I just gave both of these albums fresh plays on the record player. Kind of got to enjoy it at a louder volume than normal. So I'm going to do a track-by-track versus these two classic Van Halen albums. Starting off with Mean Street versus Good Enough. Well, Mean Street is arguably my favorite Van Halen song of all time. Good Enough is not going to be good enough to beat it. I got to give that one to Mean Street. Next up we have Dirty Movies versus Why Can't This Be Love. Dirty Movies is actually my least favorite song on Fair Warning. I like it, but it just happens to be my least favorite on the album. Maybe I just always thought it was a weird placement after how mean and gritty Mean Street is, and then it goes right back into that same kind of mean grittiness for Center Swing, and then you just sort of have this lighter, moodier track kind of in between. It always kind of threw me for a bit of a loop. But it's a good song, just my least favorite on the album. Why Can't This Be Love? I think is actually a pretty good song. It gets some slack, and it's the song that has the one really infamous bad Sammy Hagar lyric. Only time will tell if we stand the test of time. Yeah, it's kind of a dumb line, but I honestly think Sammy has done way worse, not only in his tenure with Van Halen, but even on this album. Believe it or not, I'm going to give that one to 5150. I kind of prefer Why Can't This Be Love, so maybe an unpopular pick, certainly when it comes to David Lee Roth fans, such as I would consider myself, but I actually kind of like Why Can't This Be Love a little bit better. Next up we have Center Swing versus Get Up. I think Center Swing is one of the real underrated songs, not only in Fair Warning, but in the entire classic Van Halen era. It just doesn't seem to get the love that it deserves, and I think it's one of the best, heaviest rockin' track Van Halen ever put out. David Lee Roth just sells the song with his charisma. I freaking love it. It's going up against Get Up, which for all intents and purposes I should love it. It's probably the fastest and heaviest, most rockin' track on the album. But I can't get over the fact that I always feel like they wrote the song in about 5 minutes because they needed to have a really heavy, fast rockin' track on the album. Because other than this, they really wouldn't have had one. So it's alright. I mean, it rocks pretty good. But is it on the same level as Center Swing? Hell no. I gotta give that one to Center Swing. Next up, we have Hear About It Later versus Dreams. I actually really love Dreams. I ain't gonna lie. I think Dreams is a great song, great ballad. Features Eddie's keyboard obsession that he had at this point in the 80s. And it's got some really great keyboard work in it, but I think Sammy Hagar just really sings the heck out of it. I think it's one of Sammy's best vocal performances in the group. Catchy track. I think it's a really great song. Hear About It Later. I freaking love Hear About It Later. As much as I love Dreams, I love Hear About It Later even more. I don't even really have much to say. It's just a great song. Again, I think it kind of gets overlooked in the grand scheme of the band's catalog, but Hear About It Later is a great, great song. Next up, we have Unchained versus Summer Nights. If you've followed my Van Halen videos on the channel, you know I am not a fan of Summer Nights. It is one of my least favorite Van Halen songs of all time. It opens up with that sort of poppy riff that just, I mean, it's a good riff. It's just nothing like what my favorite riffs were from Eddie before 5150. I think of songs like Mean Street and Sinner's Swing and Unchained and gosh, Ain't Talking About Love and DOA and Fools and Hang 'Em High, Drop Dead Legs. All these songs that have just these really memorable, awesome riffs to them. They're just mean and gritty and dirty. And this one's just some really like bubblegum kind of beboppy riff, and it's just sort of an odd change of pace, but I guess for what it is, it's not bad. But it has that one really stupid lyric from Sammy Hagar about they love it when me and the boys want to make some love with the human toys. That's a dumb line. I first time I heard that song, I freaking hit skip. I'm like, and that's going against Unchained. What do you think's going to win? Definitely Unchained. It's not even close. And next up, we have Push Comes to Shove versus Best of Both Worlds. Push Comes to Shove, I haven't always loved this song. Actually, I didn't really care for it when I first got the album. But I've grown to love it. It's got a nice groove to it. That bass line from Michael Anthony's pretty sick. And it's got David Lee Roth just doing his thing. Man, is there anything to do tonight? Let me another cigarette over there. It's just classic Dave. Best of Both Worlds, another one I never really cared for. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I just never felt that it was that catchy of a track. One that just can easily escape my mind, and never was a fan of it. So that one goes to Push Comes to Shove. Next up we have So This Is Love versus Love Walks In. So This Is Love kind of... I always thought this one felt out of place on this album. It's kind of the brightest track on the album. And in my mind, I always would have loved to have heard this song swapped with like DOA from Van Halen 2. I think DOA would have just been perfect for Fair Warning. And So This Is Love just kind of gives me a Van Halen 2 vibe for some reason. Maybe a 1984 one, but it doesn't feel like it fits Fair Warning. It's a good song though. I mean, again, it's got a nice little bass line from Mike Anthony. Kind of a nice groove to it. I mean, David Lee Roth, what more can you say about him? Decent track. I do actually really like Love Walks In though. It's one of my more favorite tracks on this one. Can it beat So This Is Love though? Nah. I gotta go So This Is Love. Alright, next up we have Sunday Afternoon in the Park versus the title track of 5150. Summer Afternoon in the Park, I dig it. It's weird. It's an instrumental. It's like 2 minutes. It's just really funky and weird. I think David Lee Roth said something about like a lobster or a crab crawling on the beach. Like, that's not at all what I picture. I think my mind's eye picture something way creepier, which this is like the perfect... I picture... I know it's Sunday afternoon, but I picture like a nighttime in a park somewhere with like really dimly lit, flickering like lights maybe along the pathway, and somebody taking a walk, but out of the shadows are just this creepy figure that's kind of stalking you. That's what I always pictured when I hear this song. It's awesome and it's creepy. One of the most underrated tracks, not only in this album, but in all of Van Hagar and all of Van Halen, the title track to 5150. Everything about the song I love. The riffs, Sammy's lyrics, the solo. It's just... and it never gets talked about. As popular as this album is, it's the one song here that I feel like never really gets mentioned or talked about, and it's the best song on the album. And it's just a perfect Van Hagar track to me. And I'm taking it over Sunday Afternoon in the Park. I'm giving that one to 5150. Last one, we have One Foot Out the Door versus Inside. One Foot Out the Door is sort of a last-minute track written to fill out the album. Kind of harkens off of Sunday Afternoon in the Park. It's like, what, 2 minutes? It rocks like heck, though. And Eddie's solo at the end is killer. I don't even dislike Inside. I think Inside's kind of cool for what it is. It's just a tongue-in-cheek closer to... And 5150, it's the song on the album that probably gets the most flack from a lot of fans, but I kind of dig it. But not compared to One Foot Out the Door. Just that solo alone, I'll take over Inside. So that one goes to Fair Warning. And Fair Warning is going to win this thing by a score of 7-2. Let me know in the comments how you would battle these two albums out. If you like this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you next time.